Hello. One day, the police received a report of an 11-year-old girl missing, and despite investigating the surrounding areas, they couldn't find any leads. Half a month later, another girl went missing in a similar manner. Again, the police couldn't find any clues. As the investigation seemed to hit a dead end, an incident involving a family disrupted their inquiry. But perhaps even the police didn't expect that this seemingly unrelated family incident would be the key to finding the two missing girls. So what happened with this family? What was the perpetrator's motive? And how did they manage to make two girls disappear in the modern age filled with cameras everywhere without being detected? On December 4th, 2002, the police received a distress call from a family concerned about the disappearance of 11-year-old Chen Nu Van. Around 6 o'clock that evening, Van told her family that she would go out for a while to buy pictures of famous people. Unlike today, to get pictures of favorite idols, people often relied on posters and cards. These cards were cheap, costing only about 1 yuan, allowing people to support their idols and own their pictures. Therefore, trading cards became a popular phenomenon at that time. 11-year-old Van, like many other boys and girls, idolized twins. Perhaps on the day Van disappeared, twins released new trading cards. After school, Van, full of enthusiasm, eagerly anticipated getting these special cards. That day, she returned home after school and finished her homework. Excited, Van told her family that she would go out to play and promised to return in half an hour, around 6:30 in the evening. Van began her journey from her home on Saofu Street to the second floor of Yuan Long Plaza to Yes Station, a store specializing in products related to famous people. However, no one in Van's family thought that would be the last time they would see her. From Van's house to Yuan Long Plaza took about 9 minutes according to Google Maps. Assuming children take twice the time, Van, setting out at 6:30, would arrive at Yuan Long Plaza at 6:48. She promised to return home after half an hour, which means at 7 o'clock. From 6:48 to 7 o'clock, Van had 12 minutes to shop. Similarly, the journey back home took 18 minutes, so she would leave Yuan Long Plaza at 7 o'clock and arrive home before 7:18. However, as minutes passed and it was 10 o'clock, most of the shops in Yuan Long Plaza had closed. Van's family began to worry, considering this highly unusual. Therefore, they decided to go to the hotel opposite Yuan Long Plaza and call the police for assistance. According to the police investigation, regarding Van's personality, her relationship with her family, as well as positive assessments from teachers and classmates, it could be ruled out that she inadvertently befriended strangers online. Van's family also stated that she was friendly and actively participated in activities both in and out of school. When the police reported Van's disappearance to the school on Monday, they asked the teachers and classmates about her. Everyone's feedback affirmed Van's good nature, cheerfulness, and academic achievements. Therefore, the police initially ruled out the possibility of Van leaving home on her own or encountering danger outside of school. After a day of being missing, the police went to the area of Yuan Long Plaza and posted missing person flyers for Van. Simultaneously, they checked the surveillance camera records of Yuan Long Plaza and nearby areas for any relevant information. The police discovered that Van had disappeared at 7:30 p.m. after leaving store number 236 on the second floor of Yuan Long Plaza. Although there was footage of her inside the store, there were no traces of Van after she left Yuan Long Plaza. Van's family and the police made efforts to search for any leads by examining surveillance cameras in the area. However, no information or clues were found about Van's whereabouts or any unusual behavior after she left the pedestrian bridge near Yuan Long Plaza. As time passed without any new leads on Van, fear and anxiety in the community around Yuan Long Plaza increased. People were afraid to let their children go out alone. All parents had to arrange to accompany their children to and from school, no matter how busy they were. Just half a month after Van disappeared, another girl named Nongyem Fei Sun went missing. According to the family's description, Sun usually went to school and returned home by herself after school. However, on the day she went missing, Sun didn't return home on time, and the family thought she stayed at school. However, when contacting the school, they were informed that Sun had left. The family became worried and decided to wait for another 2 hours. By 9 p.m., when Sun still hadn't returned, they decided to call the police. Upon receiving the report, the police suspected that Sun's disappearance was related to Van's disappearance due to the same cause. They began to monitor Sun's routines to conduct the investigation. After gathering statements from Sun's family and classmates, the police found out that she often liked to play in Tyrannosa Rex Park. Without wasting time, they quickly contacted the park and requested to review footage from surveillance cameras. Unfortunately, no traces of Sun were found in those images. The police decided to expand the scope of surveillance camera checks to other locations. Eventually, their efforts paid off when they discovered Sun boarding a small bus with a man. This bus was Route 39, passing by the bus station near Sun's school. However, when investigating and questioning the bus driver about that day, the driver didn't know where she got off and didn't recall Sun specifically. While the police were concerned about the disappearance of the 2 girls, a family incident disrupted their investigation. A day after Sun disappeared, on December 20th, 2002, the police received a report from a woman. Her brother-in-law, named Dong Chiang, intended to commit suicide with his 3 children as his wife was leaving him. Initially, the police thought it was a typical family dispute. However, the reality was not that simple, as the police were present at the scene and discovered something they had been searching for a long time. Although Chiang and his 3 children were successfully rescued, all 4 of them were injured to varying degrees. It appeared that Chiang had attempted to kill his children. Therefore, the police also needed to search for evidence at the scene, a seemingly ordinary house. The ground floor was a living space with a computer. The upper floor was a resting area with a bed and a wardrobe. During the investigation, the police seized 2 cans of gasoline prepared by Chiang. Everything seemed normal at first until the firefighters opened one of the cabinets and found the body of a girl. The girl was wrapped in a cloth and tied with red nylon rope. When the paper was unfolded, the victim was identified as the girl reported missing the previous day, Nguyen Fei Sun. She was still wearing the same clothes as when she disappeared. With this discovery, the detectives were puzzled. Why was Sun here? Was this family dispute related to another missing child case? Furthermore, there was a more important question. Was Van, the first missing girl, in this house? The police expanded the search scope and found a small stone house opposite Chiang's residence. In this stone house, they found Sun's backpack and shoes, and even the twins card that Van liked. They also found a used cement bag. Due to the similarities in the disappearance methods of Van and Sun and their close disappearance times, the police concluded that Van had been brutally murdered and likely buried in cement. Therefore, the search scope was expanded further. They found a covered wooden sewer, and when opened, they discovered a girl submerged in sewage at the bottom of the well. The girl's body had become severely swollen. Through DNA tests and determining the time of death, the identity of the girl was confirmed to be Van, the first missing girl on December 4th. It turns out that on December 3rd, when Van arrived at Yuanlong Plaza, she saw Chiang holding many twins cards. The pictures on those cards were the ones Van liked, so she boldly asked Chiang to buy those cards back. Chiang looked at Van and recognized that she looked very much like his wife when she was young. So, he agreed and gave those twins cards to Van, saying that he had many more twins cards at home and she could come and see if she wanted. Perhaps when Van met Chiang, he was with his 3 children, so she didn't suspect him. After arriving at Chiang's house, Van was looking at the cards downstairs, while Chiang went to call his wife back home. However, his wife refused. In anger, Chiang vented his emotions on Van and committed the violent act that caused her death. So why was the second girl, Sun, here, and why did she willingly board that bus with Chiang? It turns out that the girl and Chiang had met a month before the incident. Coincidentally, Chiang often took his 3 children with him. Once at the park where Sun lived, Chiang saw her playing. He approached to talk to her, and eventually, Sun agreed to play with Chiang's children. Afterward, Sun and Chiang exchanged phone numbers and agreed to meet later. They often went to the park together, and occasionally Sun would come home with them to play with the children. On December 19, 2002, Sun visited Chang's house again. As usual, she was in the basement playing with Chang's children, using the computer he had there. However, at that time, Chiang began to worry that his wife might leave home. He asked Sun to go upstairs and used a pillow to attack her. At first, Sun thought it was just Chang's joke, but later, she realized she couldn't resist and gradually lost consciousness. Chang, 37, was born in Taiwan but grew up in Vietnam before immigrating to the United States for smuggling. During the illegal immigration process, he was arrested by Hong Kong police at sea and spent time in a refugee camp before being released and allowed to live in Hong Kong. After arriving in Hong Kong, Chiang became a criminal and committed many crimes such as extortion, loitering outside women's restrooms, and resisting arrest. He had 2 marriages in Hong Kong, with his second wife being Liu Shan, who was only 14 at the time. When Shan met Chiang, he already had a wife in Shan, but Chiang still expressed affection for her. However, Chiang's first wife did not accept it, and she left with their son. Meanwhile, Chiang waited for Shan to turn 18 to register for marriage, and they had 3 children together. However, with the increasing number of children, family expenses also increased. Chiang, who only had a part-time job, faced financial difficulties. To support the family, Shan had to work outside, even though she lacked high education or skills. Therefore, she had to work as a reporter far from home. Working in the field of public relations, Shan broadened her horizons and realized that the world was vast. She had a new boyfriend and was open about it with Chiang. Chiang confronted Shan, who had always listened to his advice, but now had changed completely. Shan sought help from the social welfare department, hoping they could help the family resolve this issue. However, when the department representative came down, Chiang refused intervention, believing it was just a family matter. In court, Chiang claimed he had learned Thai spells. When he discovered his wife was having an affair, that betrayal made him determined to seek revenge. But his revenge didn't stop at his wife. It extended to their children as well. Chiang planned a ritual called 5 Ghosts Revenge. According to the plan, he needed 5 people to perform this ritual to turn these 5 lives into haunting spirits for Shan. However, only 3 of Chiang's children had a blood relationship with him. Therefore, he specifically targeted the other 2 children. Although Van and Sun were not related to Chiang by blood, he had behaved immorally toward the 2 children. He hoped that afterward, these 2 would have a blood relationship with him. On February 25, 2004, the final trial of the shocking case in Hong Kong took place. In court, Chiang was charged with 2 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. He was accused of taking the lives of 2 girls, Van and Son, as well as plotting to kill 3 children. In court, Chiang admitted to these actions, but denied behaving immorally toward the 2 girls. The prosecution pointed out that Chiang had repeatedly mentioned his plan to revenge on his wife, showing that he had planned and prepared for this action. As a result, Chiang was convicted of 2 counts of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. Additionally, he was convicted of attempted murder and sentenced to 8 years in prison. Ultimately, life imprisonment was not commuted. Through this case, we can see that protecting children from danger is everyone's responsibility. Furthermore, educating children about personal safety will help them become confident and know how to protect themselves in dangerous situations. Although the case brought the perpetrator to light, it left a lingering sorrow for the survivors and the people in this area. Hopefully, no one will be superstitious to the extent of being involved in the 5 Ghosts Revenge again. To have a good life and a happy family, the only way is for each individual to improve themselves. No deity can help. So, as the ancients often said, cultivate oneself, manage the family, govern the country, and bring peace to the world. The case we're delving into today rocked the nation of over 1 billion people at the time. Not only was the identity of the deceased shrouded in mystery, But the case also involved a professional killer, leaving everyone outraged. What happened next was even more shocking. On August 18, 2006, in Zhuhai, Guangdong, a gray Jetta was parked on the roadside of a luxurious residential avenue. Since it was 4 a.m. and the streets were deserted, the car stood out. A security guard patrolling 24/7 passed by it several times, but initially didn't pay much attention. It wasn't until hours later, when he noticed the car still parked in the same spot, that he approached to investigate further. However, he was startled to find the seated posture of the woman in the passenger seat unchanged, her face expressionless, a clearly visible scar on her neck, her shirt soaked in blood, along with a man in the driver's seat who was injured. His head was bowed, eyes obscured, and his body covered in deep stab wounds. Witnessing this horrific scene, the security guard quickly called the police. Within minutes, the police arrived at the scene and immediately began a thorough investigation. After the forensic examination, it was concluded that both had died from excessive blood loss due to sharp instrument cuts severing their main arteries, and the time of death was around 12 p.m. that day. The killer's modus operandi was meticulous and clean, leading the police to speculate that he was a professional assassin. They later confirmed the victims to be well-known gamblers in Macau, named Zhu Nuohong and Lin Bao Thin, known as Sister Mao and Brother Mao. Clearly, this was a meticulously planned murder, and the murderer's methods were extremely ruthless. Upon closer inspection, the police concluded that there were definitely more than one killer involved in this case, and the gray Jetta abandoned at the scene was rented from a car dealership around 5 p.m. the day before to travel to the northeast region. First, let's explore who the victim couple were. Firstly, Junwo Hong, 50 years old, was known as Sister Mao and was a well-known gambling queen in Macau. In the early years, she only worked as a manager at the Lisboa Hotel, but due to her straightforward nature and excellent work abilities, she was recognized by senior leadership. By 1999, she had become a talented employee responsible for managing all key activities of the casino. By the end of 2005, Zhu Nuo Hong joined the Golden Palace, the VIP room on the 4th floor of the Lisboa Casino, as a manager and became the owner and director of Golden Palace, which had a total of 6 tables and was the highest betting hall in Macau, with monthly betting amounts reaching up to 20 billion yuan. As for Lin Bao Thin, Zhu Nuo Hong's husband initially worked in the garment industry, but because it was profitable, he also followed his wife into the gaming industry and became a casino broker. According to their friends, Zhu Nuo Hong was dubbed the incarnation of Kuan Yin due to her rare kindness and righteousness. When the couple was buried at the Zhuhai funeral home, many relatives and friends attended and donated nearly 1 billion yuan, all of which was given to their daughter studying in the United Kingdom, before the case was resolved. Since both spouses were involved in a complex entertainment casino, there were many different opinions about the motive for their murder. Moreover, many of their friends worldwide expressed their intention to relentlessly pursue the deaths of Zhu Nuo Hong and Lin Bao Thin. Various hypotheses have been put forward as follows. Firstly, that Zhu Nuo Hong was conspired against by her colleagues due to intense competition in the VIP rooms of Macau casinos, where she may have incited jealousy by attracting major clients. Moreover, it's been suggested that the couple had previously ventured to the mainland to collect debts, but upon their deaths, the sums, amounting to billions, were stolen, indicating a possible motive related to money. Some even suspect that the location where the bodies were found wasn't the initial crime scene. Perhaps the couple was murdered on the road from Dongguan to Zhuhai before being moved to where they were discovered. Particularly noteworthy is the hypothesis that Zhu Nuo Hong, managing VIP rooms with high-stakes clients, often extended credit to familiar clients for bets amounting to tens or even hundreds of billions before seeking repayment. This is a common practice in Macau casinos, so Zhu Nuo Hong frequently traveled to the mainland to collect debts from clients. Rumors circulated that before leaving Macau, Zhu Nuo Hong had planned to meet a man named Diem in Zhuhai, who managed a lottery store on the mainland, to demand repayment of a debt exceeding 10 billion yuan before intending to vacation in the northeast region with her husband after completing the task. Therefore, many believe that during the debt collection process, she may have had a confrontation with the debtor, resulting in her murder. According to Macau police, it's rare for casino managers to be killed over debts, but this doesn't mean it hasn't happened before. Thus, amidst various speculations, the police remained focused on gathering evidence to uncover the truth and identify the murderer's identity. They collected a vast amount of information from surveillance cameras, including those in the 3 casinos where Zhu Nuohong worked, as well as places she frequented on the mainland, such as her residence and all the hotels and restaurants she visited. Additionally, the police investigated numerous individuals associated with her, among whom a key figure drew their attention: Zhu Haihong, Zhu Nuohong's younger brother. The police discovered that before she went to the mainland, Zhu Nuohong had transferred a large sum of money to Zhu Haihong's account. It's evident that Zhu Nuohong went to the mainland to collect debts, so why did she transfer a substantial amount of assets to her younger brother's name? This seems highly suspicious. Could she have known she wouldn't return? Therefore, the police swiftly seized this lead and initiated a detailed investigation into Zhu Haihong. Zhu Haihong, 48, frequently operated in Zhuhai to assist his sister in reaching major clients. Upon observation, the police noted that he didn't appear particularly distraught after his sister's murder. What's more, what further aroused suspicion was that in the period leading up to the incident, Zhu Haihong had close ties to an individual in Guangdong named Chen Jiajian and another from Kuzhou named Li Yangang. However, after the incident, the 3 of them suddenly cut off all contact with each other. Consequently, the police immediately issued a cooperation request for investigation with Zhu Haihong's 2 friends. Chen Jiajian, 42, from Zhongshan, Guangdong, had previously been convicted of intentional injury. After serving his sentence, he left his hometown and began working as a contract killer. Li Yangang also had a criminal record. On August 20th, the police learned that Chen Jiajian might have fled to Tongnigia, so they immediately dispatched a special team to search the area. Upon arrival, they discovered Chen Jiajian hiding in a village, prompting them to collaborate with local authorities to ascertain the suspect's whereabouts. After 3 days of relentless effort, the police received information that Chen Jiajian was fleeing to the mountainous region with very complicated terrain. Therefore, they took their police dogs along with local authorities and villagers to launch a search campaign in the mountains. Finally, around 5 a.m. on August 24th, Chen Jiajian was apprehended. Upon investigation, the police found that Chen Jiajian and Li Yangang were merely intermediaries responsible for finding the killer and were not directly involved in the case. Both confessed that it was Zhu Haihong who offered a reward of nearly 200 million yuan to hire them to search for the murderer. Subsequently, based on Chen Jiajian's confession, the police discovered several leads and arrested several other suspects directly linked to the case. When confronted by the police, Zhu Haihong did not appear surprised, as if he had anticipated this day would come. After the interrogation, the information revealed shocked everyone, as no one thought it was a case where the victims hired their own killer. Zhu Nuohong and her husband owed over 340 billion yuan in high-interest debt and were unable to repay it, so she begged her brother to hire a hitman to kill them. It turned out to be a contracted murder orchestrated by Zhu Nuohong and her husband. About a month before the incident, Zhu Nuohong met with Zhu Haihong to discuss business matters and told her brother that she was in debt and unable to repay, so she asked him to find someone to kill her and her husband. Zhu Haihong immediately refused. However, Zhu Nuohong cried and begged, saying she had considered suicide, but if she did, their debt would be transferred to their daughter. Therefore, to avoid implicating their daughter, Zhu Nuohong and her husband decided to turn it into a murder case. This way, they could be considered dead while performing official duties, and the casino would not only clear their debt, but also provide a pension to support their daughter. After hearing her sister's plea, Zhu Haihong finally relented. Junwo Hong then did three things. Firstly, she wrote a suicide note explaining everything clearly to avoid implicating her brother if the case was exposed. Secondly, she transferred most of the assets to her daughter's name and a portion to her brother's name. Finally, she provided nearly 200 million yuan to pay for hiring the hitman. On August 15th, 3 days before the incident, Chen Jiajian found two professional hitmen, Fan Canlai and Yang Chin Lam, and asked them to be extremely brutal on August 18th to make people believe that Junwo Hong and her husband had been killed. She tried her best to stage the scene, especially by telling everyone beforehand that she and her husband would go to the mainland to collect debts. Additionally, she intentionally went to a rental agency to rent a gray Jetta to make people believe they intended to travel to the northeast. After arranging everything, they drove to the agreed-upon location and waited for the hitman to arrive. Because neither of them wanted to witness the death of the other, Junwo Hong asked the hitman to tie up and blindfold her husband before proceeding with her. When the police arrived at the scene, they found them dead, holding hands tightly in the front row. In fact, Lam Bao Thin had nothing to do with these debts, so he could have stayed out of it, but ultimately chose to die with his wife. This shows the intense affection between the two. According to Ju Hai Hong's account, before hiring the hitman, his sister gave him a package of bills and letters. After determining their hiding place, the police quickly arrived and found the final letter that Junwo Hong wrote to her daughter, along with related bills in a safe. This crucially plays a role in uncovering the truth of this bizarre case and bringing it to justice. In the end, Ju Hai Hong was sentenced to 12 years in prison, and several other murderers were also sentenced to 12 to 14 years in prison. Junwo Hong's actions have led gambling enthusiasts further into the abyss, while also exposing them to risks with no alternative choices. Whether winning or losing, there is ultimately an unfavorable outcome. Today, I will bring you a murder case in which the culprit was someone initially unsuspected, displaying extraordinary intelligence. This is a heinous murder case that took place in September 2003 in Handan, Hebei, China. The victim was a successful businesswoman with a prominent social status. She was found dead in a state of disarray, with multiple stab wounds on her body and her clothes torn. Along with 2 footprints left by the perpetrator, this case ranks among the most horrifying and perplexing murder cases in Chinese. Now, let's delve into the details of the incident. On September 29th, 2003, the police received a report of a brutal murder in an upscale residential complex. The informant was the local prosecutor, Mr. Chen. Upon receiving the information, the police quickly arrived at the crime scene. Mr. Chen, the victim's husband, stated that he had called home in the morning but received no response. Thinking that his wife was still asleep, he made several more calls, but the result was the same. No one answered. Mr. Chen started feeling uneasy and decided to ask their neighbors to knock on their door and check. However, despite the neighbors' attempt to knock on the door, no one came out. Troubled by the news, Mr. Chen rushed back home immediately. But upon arrival, he realized that he had forgotten to bring the house keys, so he vigorously knocked on the door, hoping for a response from inside to dispel his worries. Unfortunately, the more he hoped, the more desperate he became, as the door remained shut and silent. Luckily, Mr. Chen's house was on the 2nd floor, not too high above the ground. He came up with an idea to seek help from the neighboring house by climbing out onto their balcony and then crossing over to his own. However, his plan fell through because his balcony was securely locked. Despite successfully crossing over, he couldn't gain entry and could only peer through the glass door to assess the situation. That's when he witnessed a terrifying scene. The bed was stained with blood, and Mrs. Wang, the homeowner, lay motionless on it, her condition unclear, whether she was alive or dead. Witnessing this scene, Mr. Chen was filled with fear and immediately notified the police. Upon assessing the situation, the police broke the door and approached Mrs. Wang, who lay on the blood-soaked bed. She had already ceased to breathe, wearing a pink nightgown with both hands and feet tied with nylon ropes. her mouth covered and her body exposed. The police discovered several strands of male pubic hair on the victim's genital area, and the cause of death was a stab wound to the chest, with at least 10 stab wounds on the body. The crime scene was chaotic, indicating that the victim had attempted to resist and fight for her life against the assailant. Moreover, there were handprints found, but no fingerprints were detected, leading the police to speculate that the criminal wore gloves during the attack. Furthermore, the police found 2 sets of footprints in the living room leading to the bedroom, which did not belong to the residents. Most importantly, no suspicious object that could be the murder weapon was found at the crime scene. The main entrance and windows were also undamaged. Additionally, at the crime scene, the police found over 100,000 yuan in cash, along with other valuable jewelry and belongings. Due to the severity of the case, the police immediately formed a special investigation team to analyze the available evidence. Based on the chaotic traces at the crime scene, the perpetrator appeared to have broken into the apartment to steal valuables. However, it was peculiar that there was still a significant amount of cash left untouched, suggesting that money was not the motive. Furthermore, although the police found some remaining strands of male pubic hair on the victim's genitals, there was no evidence of semen. This indicated that the perpetrator did not commit sexual assault against Mrs. Wang. So, is this a case of failed burglary, attempted sexual assault, and murder? According to Wang's friends, she is a very straightforward person and has never had any ambiguous relationships with anyone. Therefore, the possibility of committing a crime of passion is ruled out. Considering that the victim was involved in business, the police also reasoned that the perpetrator could be an employee within the company or a competitor of the victim, acting out of conflicting interests. However, people say that Wang is straightforward and always enthusiastic about helping her employees when they encounter difficulties, so she is highly regarded by everyone. It is highly likely that Wang's husband in the business world has provoked enmity with someone, and unable to kill him, that person turned to killing his wife. Based on this line of reasoning, the police thoroughly investigated all the employees in Mr. Chen's company as well as his competitors, but they did not obtain any promising results. The investigation continuously reached a dead end. According to the accounts of Mr. Chen's neighbors, the relationship between the couple was not as harmonious as it appeared to others. In fact, it was quite terrible. They would have minor arguments every 3 days and major arguments every 5 days, and the entire building was always in an annoying state of noise. A woman who claimed to be Wang's close friend also revealed to the police that Wang was merely a pawn that her husband always put forward. Furthermore, most of the money in Wang's company was actually controlled by Mr. Chen alone. In fact, a large portion of the money in Wang's company was obtained through Mr. Chen's abuse of power and accepting bribes. The so-called company was just a cover to launder money. Moreover, Wang's close friend also revealed that Mr. Chen had a very promiscuous lifestyle after becoming a successful man. Starting from 1996, he began a romantic relationship with a newly graduated college student. After Wang discovered this, she set up a scenario to catch him in a compromising position, hoping that her husband would feel ashamed and give up his bad habits. But unexpectedly, after that incident, Mr. Chen became even more audacious in his extramarital affairs. Not only did he openly have an affair with someone else, but he also shamelessly had a child with that person. What's even more surprising is that he had a sexual relationship with the sibling of that person. The result caused a rift between the two sisters. To support these two sisters, Mr. Chen had to spend a large amount of money. Because Mr. Chen had spent too much money, Wang felt that she could no longer tolerate it and had to find a way to limit her husband's bad behavior. It's possible that due to pressure from his wife, frequent conflicts occurred between the couple, and it cannot be ruled out that Mr. Chen decided to plan the murder of his wife in order to live a more comfortable life. The investigators also found this hypothesis quite plausible. However, there is another issue. Mr. Chen is one of the powerful right-hand men of a prominent leader in the city, and the crime occurred during the election period. Mr. Chen is also about to be promoted to a higher position. He is preparing to join the city's leadership committee. Therefore, in the absence of concrete evidence and due to the sensitive nature of the case, the police are hesitant to take immediate action. At the same time, due to the unique nature of the case, some experts in the field of investigation have been mobilized, including Meister Kwok, one of the most talented and outstanding criminal investigation experts in China. He has been involved in analyzing criminal investigations since the 1950s, has participated in thousands of cases, and has not made a single mistake. He is hailed as the Sherlock Holmes of China. At this point, although 3 months have passed since the day of the crime scene is still well preserved. After Mr. Kwok and other experts thoroughly examined the crime scene, they quickly discovered some clues that the previous investigation team had overlooked. First, there were 2 sets of footprints left at the crime scene. Initially, it seemed that the criminal entered the bedroom and left the room after committing the murder. However, upon closer examination, it can be observed that these footprints only point inward, and there are no footprints leading out. The killer stayed at the crime scene for a while before leaving, yet there were no overlapping footprints at the scene. If it is assumed that the murderer intentionally erased their footprints, then why did they leave footprints when entering the victim's bedroom? Therefore, it is not difficult to deduce that the footprints at the crime scene were deliberately left behind by the killer, indicating that they are fake traces. Second, as mentioned earlier, there were clear signs of a struggle on the bed. This indicates that the victim attempted to defend themselves before their death. However, during the second autopsy conducted by Detective O. Kwok, it was discovered that although Wang had multiple injuries, most of them were fatal wounds, yet she was still alive during the first 4 attacks. In addition, at the time the body was discovered, the victim was bound. Normally, when bound in such a way, there would be visible marks or bruises on the victim's skin caused by resistance. However, there were no such characteristics on Wang's body. Why is that? There is only one explanation. When she was attacked, Wang was in a deep state of unconsciousness. This was confirmed through the examination of excess water in her stomach and a second blood test, which showed that she had consumed a large amount of sedatives before her death. But then, there is a new question. Did Wang take the sedatives herself, or was she forced to take them? After a thorough examination during the autopsy, the experts discovered that there were no needle marks on the victim's body, nor any signs indicating that she was forced to take the drugs. Furthermore, no drugs were found at the crime scene. More importantly, the analysis of the stomach contents revealed that Wang was murdered several hours after ingesting the sedatives. Therefore, the possibility of the perpetrator forcing the victim to take the drugs can be ruled out. This means that Wang was deceived by someone who could make her take the drugs without any suspicion. The only person who could do that is someone she trusted the most. If it is true that the person she trusted is the perpetrator, then why would that person brutally murder her? What is the relationship between the murderer and Wang? Detective O. Kwok found a bra on the sofa in the bedroom. The bra was neatly folded and almost free of bloodstains. This indicates that Wang had removed this bra herself before going to bed. The theory is that even if someone she knew visited her, she couldn't open the door without wearing a bra. Therefore, analyzing the identity of the murderer has become easier than ever. Additionally, the issue of the weapon that has been puzzling the police for so long has also been resolved by O. Kwok. After closely examining the blanket beneath Wang's body, O. Kwok found a faint bloodstain of a blade. Although the trace of the blade was quite faint, fortunately, the shape was still discernible, indicating that it was a light, curved knife. Through the cuts on Wang's body, it can be determined that this was indeed the murder weapon. Clearly, the biggest suspect in this case is none other than Mr. Chen, the victim's husband. On January 18, 2003, 108 days after the crime occurred, Chen was arrested on suspicion of intentional homicide. However, as an experienced prosecutor, Chen understood that a case couldn't be solved definitively without finding the murder weapon. Therefore, from beginning to end, he refused to confess, even appearing arrogant and stating that no one could judge him. However, soon after, Chen could no longer maintain his arrogance. By comparing Chen's walking habits, experts identified fake footprints at the crime scene that did not match Chen's foot size, but were undoubtedly his footprints. Combined with the evidence of Chen's corruption found in Wang's safe and 6 notebooks left behind by Wang before his death, it confirmed that everything revealed by Wang's friends was true. Most importantly, through the investigation of Chen's friends and classmates, the police obtained valuable information from a friend named Truong, who said that he had once given Chen and 3 other friends a beautiful curved knife as a gift. The police immediately took this knife from the homes of the other 3 individuals and realized that only the suspect Chen's knife was missing. After a thorough comparison, they found that the blood and cuts on Wang's body matched perfectly, confirming that the murder weapon was indeed this curved knife. Finally, unable to escape the evidence and the sharp reasoning of the police, Chen had no choice but to truthfully confess the entire process of killing his wife to the authorities. According to Chen's confession, the reality was that he had wanted to divorce his wife for a long time, but had been afraid to do so because his wife had held on to incriminating evidence against him for many years. If he made her angry, and she revealed all the bad things he had done, he would surely spend his life behind bars. It was only after a recent argument that Chen truly became sinister and began to contemplate murder. Prior to the crime, he had prepared a knife, rope, gloves, and some strands of hair from another man to carry out the act. On the day of the crime, he gave Wang a cup of drugged water, and Wang, unsuspecting, drank it. After an hour, Chen realized that his wife was deeply asleep. Though he hesitated a little because they had lived together for many years, he ultimately thought that if she remained alive, his dark secrets would surely be exposed someday. In her unconscious state, Wang suddenly uttered 2 words, startling Chen. Fearing that the sound would be heard by the neighbors, he quickly placed the small knife on the blanket and grabbed a black shirt to cover his wife's mouth. Then, Chen repeatedly stabbed his wife 21 times, causing severe internal injuries and significant blood loss, leading to her immediate death. Afterward, Chen cleverly fabricated the crime scene and disposed of the murder weapon, pretending that nothing had happened and going about his usual routine. On October 22, 2004, the prosecution office formally charged Chen. When Chen learned that the police did not find the murder weapon, he saw a glimmer of hope and immediately recanted his previous confession, while hiring 3 high-paid lawyers to defend him. However, all efforts were in vain. On August 12, 2006, the Supreme Court issued a death sentence for Chen for the crimes of intentional homicide and bribery. He was also stripped of his political rights for life. Thus, the case of a highly intelligent assassin killing his wife came to a close. The bond of marriage was no match for the materialistic desires of this murderer. Perhaps this case, along with many other tragic cases, is one of the major reasons why young people nowadays are reluctant to engage in romantic relationships and do not want to get married. This is clearly an alarming situation that requires the government to take measures and campaigns to help young people shape their personalities correctly, avoiding growing up with distorted consciousness and posing a danger to society. In October 1988, a middle-aged woman rushed to the police station with 2 panicked audio tapes in hand. Her name was Chen Guimei, 41 years old, and she came to report that her daughter had been murdered, submitting the 2 tapes as evidence. The tapes recorded Chen Guimei questioning her 2 grandchildren about her daughter's whereabouts, and unexpectedly, her young grandson said that his mother would never return because she was lying in 3 bags. This information sent shivers down the spines of all the police officers present. But this case was not as straightforward as you might think. Her daughter's name was Wu Tui Van. In 1983, when she was just 19 years old, she defied her parents' objections and decided to marry Jie Zheng Yuan, a man who was poor but very kind-hearted. It seemed like their passionate love would pave the way for the couple to overcome difficulties and have a better future, but the events of the next 5 years completely extinguished their hopes. Both husband and wife had unstable jobs. Wu Tui Van earned a living through part-time work and took care of their 2 young children at home. Although Chen Guimei disliked her son-in-law, her love for her grandchildren was so great that she often visited to help her daughter's family, and occasionally, the couple would also bring the children home for dinner with their parents. In early 1988, Dieu Zhengyuan got a sailor job through a friend's recommendation, a well-paying but challenging job. Consequently, he often had to be away from home for long periods before returning, meaning he also had to endure loneliness, isolation, and missing his wife and children while working at sea. However, because this job provided the main source of income for the family, both husband and wife were very satisfied with it. Moreover, having a stable job also earned Dieu Zhengyuan the respect and trust of his in-laws. On July 12, 1988, when Dieu Zhengyuan returned from abroad, Chen Guimei decided to invite her daughter's family for dinner. She had already prepared a sumptuous meal and eagerly awaited everyone's arrival. However, no one showed up, no matter how long she waited. After waiting for too long, Chen Guimei knew for sure that something was wrong with her daughter and son-in-law, so she called her granddaughter to inquire about the situation. The girl said that her parents were arguing, so they didn't come to Grandma's house for dinner. After that, the girl hung up without saying anything else. 2 days later, Chen Guimei's daughter suddenly called to ask for a loan of about 7 million dong to help with the family's expenses. Although Chen Guimei was very angry at her son-in-law because her daughter asked to borrow money, she could only agree. However, she did not expect that this would be the last time she would see her daughter. After waiting for several days without her daughter coming to collect the money, Chen Guimei tried to call her daughter many times, but could not get through. Then, after a while, her son-in-law called to inform her that they were about to move to a new house and hadn't had time to install the telephone line, so it might not be convenient to contact her. After speaking, he quickly hung up. Chen Guimei was very suspicious of this because her daughter had never mentioned moving, and their sudden move was very unusual. Waiting for another 10 days, Dieu Zhengyuan finally called again. Chen Guimei immediately asked about her daughter's whereabouts, but she did not expect him to coldly say that when they had an argument a few days ago, Wu Tuivan was so angry that she left home right after. Chen Guimei felt very uncomfortable about this because her daughter used to call her frequently, and even when she argued with her husband, she had never stopped contacting Mrs. for so long. So she immediately suggested her son-in-law report it to the police, but Dieu Zhengyuan claimed that he had already reported the incident and was awaiting a response from the police. Chen Guimei tried for another 3 months, but still received no news about her daughter, as if she had completely disappeared from the world. Finally, on October 4th, Chen Guimei couldn't sit still anymore. She called Dieu Zhengyuan and said that she missed her 2 grandchildren, so she asked him to bring them over for dinner. That evening, while her son-in-law was sitting drinking with her husband, she took her 2 grandchildren aside to inquire about their mother's situation. The 2 children, looking bewildered, told their grandmother that during the argument, their father made their mother kneel down and hit her with a belt. Then the next morning, their father told them that their mother had left them for another man. At that moment, Chen Guimei became even more convinced that her daughter was in trouble. She quickly took out the tape recorder to have her grandson repeat what he said and kept it as evidence. Early the next morning, she hurried to the police station to report all the incidents and submitted the audio tape. In the 1980s, security in Taiwan was chaotic. There were many unsolved criminal cases, so this brutal and clear-cut case was a good opportunity for the police to establish credibility. Therefore, they quickly focused on capturing the perpetrator. The police knew that Dieu Zhengyuan would pick up his children at the kindergarten every day, so they waited there in ambush and successfully arrested him. At the same time, they also contacted various media outlets to provide direct information about the case to gain the public's trust. But what no one expected was that Dieu Jung Yuan's interrogation did not go smoothly, and the case had many suspicious aspects. Dieu Jung Yuan appeared completely confused about being suspected of killing his wife and dismembering her. He vehemently shouted that he was innocent and begged everyone to help find the truth. Dieu Jung Yuan claimed that he and his wife had argued on the 16th because she proposed a divorce, but he disagreed. After that, his wife left home and disappeared for several months. He truly didn't know where she had gone and couldn't understand why his children could say such things. He cried a lot and repeatedly expressed his anguish over this matter, worrying that his children would suffer without their mother's love. Because they couldn't investigate anything further from Dieu Jung Yuan, the police decided to go to Wu Tuivan's workplace to inquire. But unexpectedly, neither Dieu Jung Yuan nor his family knew where she worked. They only knew that Wu Tuivan was a housewife and took care of the children at home. She had mentioned working the night shift at an electronics factory, but she had never disclosed which factory or where it was located. Although Dieu Jung Yuan was the primary suspect in this disappearance case, without any other concrete evidence proving that he had committed the murder, the case once again fell into a deadlock. In desperation, the police had to rely on the testimony of the children. They believed that the innocent children could not make up such horrifying statements on their own. Surely they had seen something. When the police took the two children to the crime scene, they described in great detail every aspect of the incident, including the type of knife their father used, how he dismembered their mother and put her body into a bag, and even how he cleaned up the bloodstains there. If what the children said was true, there had to be evidence at the scene, such as a large amount of blood on the ground. However, after the police used all identification methods, they only found a small amount of blood on the ground, and the murder weapon mentioned by the children was nowhere to be found. The children then continued to recount that afterward, their father drove them to a deserted field, left them in the car, and went down to dig a large hole, burying the bag containing their mother's body underneath. The police were very surprised and couldn't believe that such young children could accurately describe the location of the body's disposal. Everyone was astonished and felt confident that the truth would soon be revealed. Analyzing the burial site mentioned by the children to be in Youth Park, the police quickly went there and dug through the ground for hours. However, the result was futile as they found nothing, not even a single hair, let alone any piece of someone's remains. Now everyone across the country shared the same question. Can the testimony of such a young child be reliable? Do they really understand concepts like murder, dismemberment, and burial? Some even argued that the police shouldn't have brought such a young child back to the crime scene because if the children truly witnessed the tragedy, it would surely leave them with significant psychological trauma. With no progress in the case, the direction of the investigation was fading and public trust in the police was diminishing. However, fortunately, a crucial lead finally emerged. New information from the tenant at Dieu Jung Yuan's former residence, named Liao Guoyong, stated that when he first moved in, he found a bag of clothes with small bloodstains on the bed and a piece of rotting meat full of maggots. But he didn't think much of it and simply threw it away. Now, upon hearing this news and reflecting, he feared it was the body of Wu Tuivan. Not only that, he also mentioned that he had dreamed of a headless woman, covered in blood, silently staring at him from a distance without saying a word. Because of these statements, the police quickly went to the old residence to thoroughly search, but once again, they found no bloodstains. The police tried to sift through the landfill for 3 consecutive days to find any decaying remains, but ultimately found nothing. Similarly to Liao Guoyong, Chen Guimei revealed that she had also dreamed of her daughter wearing a red dress and saying to her, "Mom, save me, I'm so cold, Mom." So she speculated that her daughter must have been thrown into a place with water, but no matter how hard they searched, the police still didn't know the exact whereabouts of Wu Tuivan. Not long after, a major breakthrough occurred. After tracing Wu Tuivan's records, the police discovered that she didn't work in an electronics factory, but in a special industry. The police immediately took Wu Tuivan's photo to inquire with her colleagues at her workplace, and the results surprised them because Wu Thui Van was indeed an employee there. The accountant said she had just come to collect her salary a few days ago, but then she quit, and they didn't know where she had gone. A colleague who was closer to Wu Thui Van also said they had dinner together a few days ago. This was strange because if that was the case, then Wu Thui Van wasn't dead, so why would her children say such things? A few days later, the police received a call that made them very excited from a colleague of Wu Thui Van, informing them that Wu Thui Van had just contacted her and promised to call back tomorrow. Upon hearing this, the police went to the colleague's house and installed tracking devices, then began to wait. Waiting from morning until 9 p.m. Finally, the call from Wu Thui Van came. The colleague asked her, "Why aren't you going to work anymore?" "I have some issues I can't talk about." "Where are you?" "I'm in Kaohsiung." She immediately hung up the phone and said nothing more. Was the person on the other end of the line really Wu Thui Van? If it was indeed her, then the testimonies of the two children must be something to consider. Indeed, the police, after careful examination and analysis of the children's testimonies, found many inconsistencies. For instance, if the children had truly witnessed the father killing the mother, it would have been a horrific scene that they couldn't calmly describe in such detail. Moreover, no matter how intense the arguments between the couple were, it would be unlikely for them to kill each other in front of their children. Therefore, the police suspected that someone had coached the children to lie. Subsequently, the police informed Chen Guimei and brought her two grandsons to the scene. They discovered that the children had seen their grandmother first during questioning, so the police brought Chen Guimei and the children back to the police station. They began to separate the children from their grandmother and gently asked them if they really saw their father killing their mother. Did someone teach them to say those things? To everyone's surprise, this time the answers from the two children were completely different. They blurted out that it was their grandmother who had taught them how to describe the killing process in detail, including dismemberment and hiding the body. Finally, after thorough investigation and based on the existing evidence, the judge decided to acquit Dieu Zhengyuan. During police interrogation, Chen Guimei kept shouting and denying that she had coached her grandson to lie. She said that she herself was deceived by the children. Otherwise, how could she organize a funeral for her daughter? This wasn't the first time Wu Thui Van had disappeared for so long. 2 or 3 years ago, Chen Guimei had publicly accused Dieu Zhengyuan of killing her daughter in this manner. Although Dieu Zhengyuan was acquitted, because there was no news of Wu Thui Van, many still believed that he had killed his wife. But if Wu Thui Van was still alive, why had she never shown up? Once their daughter had an accident and had to stay in a special care room, so investigators took advantage of this opportunity to spread the news through the media in hopes that Wu Thui Van would come back to see her daughter after seeing the news. However, no one expected that even when their daughter recovered and was discharged, the whereabouts of Wu Thui Van remained a big mystery. Although Chen Guimei was suspected of coaching her grandson to lie, she never stopped her efforts to search for her daughter over the years. She even offered a reward of up to 50,000 yuan for anyone who could find Wu Thui Van. In 1991, she even spent a lot of money to find a famous goddess to help find her daughter's remains. This goddess told her that Wu Thui Van's remains were under Zhongjihing Bridge. Overjoyed, Chen Guimei immediately went to the police, hoping they could help her dig it up. The police, having no leads and wanting to solve the case as soon as possible, immediately sent a team to dig up the body under the bridge. This time, they did find a skeleton. Unfortunately, after forensic examination, it turned out to be just a pig's skeleton. Whether these things were set up by the goddess to deceive Chen Guimei for money or not, depends on each person's perspective, but no matter what, Chen Guimei had spent millions searching for her daughter's whereabouts. It wasn't until February 1993, when everyone thought Wu Thui Van had probably died, that she suddenly appeared with a man by her side, and they had a child together. This time it was because she wanted to register the birth certificate for the child. so she reluctantly had to contact her family. Wu Tui Van's case was quite shocking at the time, but little did people know that her own mother was the real central figure in the case. It turned out Wu Tui Van had an unhappy relationship with her husband for a long time. They often quarreled, and she had filed for divorce, but Jie Zhengyuan disagreed, so she decided to leave her husband and 2 young children. She then met her current boyfriend while working at a cafe and started dating him under a different name, Liu Shui Lian. Since they got along so well, Wu Tui Van didn't want her boyfriend to know about her past. Therefore, even during the years when her mother was desperately searching for her daughter, and even after her daughter's car accident, which couldn't move her, she never appeared. Now, many years had passed, and her child with her new lover needed to register for a birth certificate, so she had to return to her old house, thinking that no one would remember a little person like her after so long. However, her thinking was completely wrong. As soon as Wu Tui Van appeared, everyone immediately recognized her and reported her to the police. They quickly arrested Wu Tui Van and took her to the station for questioning. The police then accused Chen Guimei of coaching the children to lie, but the court ruled that since she had spent a lot of time and effort searching for her daughter out of eagerness to find her, she was acquitted. Jie Zhengyuan, who had faced a lot of public pressure for 5 years, filed a complaint against his ex-wife for her misconduct and unethical behavior. Throughout that process, Wu Tui Van, a selfish woman, had caused her parents, ex-husband, and 2 children to suffer psychological damage that could never be compensated for. Even her new boyfriend and child would be significantly affected by public opinion because of her selfish actions. If Wu Tui Van hadn't only thought of her own interests and done something foolish, then these regrettable events wouldn't have happened. And if her mother hadn't been so overprotective and made a rash decision that made everything worse, surely those innocent children wouldn't have been poisoned to say those cruel words. Surely, all these events would leave a significant psychological scar on the children's minds in the future.